We want to go ahead and bring in John McNamara, Vice President of Government Affairs, Michigan Restaurant and Lodging Association. Thank you for being with us again on the Oakland County MegaCast. We always get so much great information out of you when you do come on to speak. So, how are your members doing? Tough time.
It's a tough time to run a business in the best of times. Your margins are thin, and right now it's even harder. But continuing to do better. Luckily, we've had a pretty good summer in terms of weather. So with the ability to expand outdoor seating, and the weather cooperating, they're doing okay. Far from great, but better than they were in March and April when they were completely shut down and you couldn't be outside.
John, what I really worry about for some of these businesses, the winter months, it's like you said, we've had a great summer, so they have been able to expand their seating, and I like to sit outside whenever I can. But when it comes winter here in Michigan and it's 0 degrees, I don't want to be outside, and that's going to be a big hit for them if they're not allowed to reopen.
It is, and we're hopeful by that point we'll see some increased capacity for indoor dining, and hopefully, this we have even more control over this virus than we have before. But the hits just keep coming with college football being canceled. That's probably 120,000 extra people in Ann Arbor and probably an extra 80,000 people in East Lansing. Every other Saturday there for a while that they're just not going to get. And with MSU not bringing students back, there's a whole nother population of customers that just aren't going to be there.
Yeah, I think when we look at these decisions that are being made, we focus on the college, we focus on the students and the parents, but we forget about all the other businesses that rely on these sporting events and even festivals and fairs and things of that nature to keep their bottom line going. So what's next? Any new developments from your organization, and what are you telling your members right now?
So right now, obviously, both the state legislature and the federal government are back in summer recess. At the federal level, what we're working on right now is a second round of Paycheck Protection Program funding, which I think will probably happen the third or fourth week in September when they're back at work. There was talks of more stimulus checks, extended unemployment, and a larger COVID package at the federal level. However, the two sides just couldn't simply agree on what to do. However, they all agree that more paycheck protection funding is necessary. So hopefully we get that through. At the state level, there's a 3-bill package on limiting liability. Two of the bills basically say if any business, including restaurants, are following current protocols, they're immune from a lawsuit. And the third bill is an employee protection bill that says if your employee has to self-quarantine or has a COVID-related issue, you cannot cause them any undoing in course. And hopefully there's a hearing on that coming up next week.
John McNamara with us, Vice President of Government Affairs at the Michigan Restaurant and Lodging Association on the Oakland County MegaCast. And John, we previously have spoken to Dave Lorenz from Travel Michigan, who has said that the good weather obviously has had a great impact on the on Michigan's tourism industry as people are staying in state and traveling about the state instead of going out of state or overseas, whatever the case may be, for their summer travels. Has the increase in tourism within the state of Michigan been helpful, particularly for those lodging members of your organization, but also for the restaurants?
It's been helpful. Obviously, we're going to see it more in region 6 and 8, so up north, where a lot of people in Michigan like to spend their summers. It's been better than had been forecasted, or better than people had thought before. But I mean, numbers are still down across the board. I mean, it's other than outside of Mackinac Island, which is seeing pretty consistent numbers. I mean, numbers are still down in general.
Can we talk about employees for a little minute? I know it was really hard for a lot of the restaurants and these businesses to get employees coming back because they were making more money with the federal stimulus. But now that that's gone away, are they seeing the return of some of these employees? What does that side of the business look like?
They are, and President Trump did extend the unemployment to a lesser amount through executive order about 10 days ago. But right now, what we're still seeing is some employees saying, I'm going to wait it out and see. I think there's going to be a second stimulus. I think there's going to be a second round of federal unemployment, and they don't want to come back to work, only work maybe 2 to 3 weeks and then not have the time in the bank for unemployment. So it's an absolute problem, but I think it's going to start getting better now that I think it's pretty obvious that a massive COVID-4 package at the federal level is not going to occur.
John McNamara with us on the Oakland County MegaCast. He is the Vice President of Government Affairs at the Michigan Restaurant and Lodging Association. So you talk about bringing those employees back, but with the bottom lines still down, are those jobs going to be there if we're still going 5-6 more months down the road and the numbers in terms of business revenues are not increasing, or you're not getting that support for extra capacity, particularly in the restaurants at the state level?
No, I mean, if we go back, if we're still at 50% capacity indoors, in mid-October, when it probably will be too cold to consistently sit outside, it's going to be much harder on that. So hopefully by then we have that increased capacity. But I mean, right now, 75% of our restaurant members have predicted they will not be cash flow positive over the next 6 months. So no matter what, it's going to be a loss for them. So at some point, hopefully, everyone is comfortable again to go out. It's safe to go out again. They're allowed to go out again.
Do you have a number on how many businesses in your organization have shut their doors during this time?
It's easily over 1,000 restaurants and probably closer to 2 at this point. When the full shutdown was effect, we were losing about 30 restaurants a day.
Wow, that's hard, and for those owners, they're going to feel the impact of that, for years to come. Let's talk a little bit about the mask mandate. We've been talking about this at great length. Now that seems like the health department is going out and starting to cite some of these businesses that aren't following the rules and regulations. What are your thoughts on that? And for the most part, how is it going?
So for the most part, it's going well. And, right now we keep telling people your mask is your cost of admission. If you want to go into a restaurant right now, it's what you have to do. You can take it off the second you sit down, and if you get up, you need to put it back on. For the most part, people are being compliant. The majority of our members were in favor of this because it gave them something to point to. They can say, hey, listen, we don't agree with it, but we need to stay open. So this is what you have to do. Are there some people who are rude and mean to staff who ask them to do it? Sure. But unfortunately, you have rude guests in every situation. And it got to the point where we provided a de-escalation webinar for our members and their staff, just to say, hey, these are some tactics you can use if someone is, being rude and refusing to put their mask on and being boisterous.
John McNamara with us. He is the Vice President of Government Affairs at the Michigan Restaurant and Lodging Association with us on the Oakland County MegaCast. John, a few more minutes with you before we let you go. What do you see as the future for these restaurants and lodging, particularly in the state of Michigan where your organization covers? Do you see that if we are able to get out of this pandemic by the end of this year, that there could be some recovery in 2021, or are we going to continue to see significant struggles for these businesses going forward?
I think when a vaccine is established and people are more comfortable, the industry will come back. Now, that doesn't mean we're not going to lose more bars, restaurants, hotels in that time period. But I'm hopeful that, by the middle of 2021, the vaccine's established, the numbers are down, the curve has been completely flattened, if not destroyed. People will be confident to go out again. Restaurants were a vanguard of public health and public safety before this. No one wants to get anyone sick. And we did it then, and we've proven now it can be done very safely.
So what are your thoughts on the state naming some of these restaurants and these businesses when they do have a large outbreak, but they don't name every place? What are your thoughts about that? Because I could imagine that if you're a business owner, that's hard to come back from.
It's very hard to come back from. And, there are some misnomers out there about restaurants being super spreaders and, air conditioning units in restaurants spreading disease and everything. So, no one wants anything negative attached to the name of their business. But unfortunately, it's happening. Sometimes it's happening when it shouldn't and when the problem really wasn't at the restaurant.
John McNamara, before we let you go, what do you want people to know about what you guys are doing and how? Talk a little bit, about some of these bills. I would think if you're a restaurant, especially, these tend to be lower income jobs. If I have an employee who may or may not be sick, but you work on tips, that person probably doesn't want to say anything and they don't want to get tested, because that could be 2 weeks of them not having a paycheck. So is there anything or any discussions in place to try to help support some of these workers if they do have to quarantine?
So, I mean, right now they still, for another at least 5 or 6 weeks, they still have additional federal unemployment coming at that point. And then I'm assuming when they get back in the fall, there'll be probably maybe another round of even smaller federal unemployment through the end of the year. But I mean, it is an ongoing discussion. This is obviously, no one's been through a pandemic before. So I mean, it's an ongoing discussion, and it's a worthy discussion in order to protect employees and protect guests and protect other members of the teams where they work.
I know you had mentioned one of the bills would address lawsuits. How concerned are businesses about the potential of lawsuits if someone does sue them because they say that, they got COVID from their establishment, or from employees concerned about coming back for safety reasons?
They're very concerned. I would say for some of our members, it's one of the first things that they think about when they wake up, and one of the last things they think about before they go to bed is that they're just worried of, I'm doing everything I can to protect people. There's going to be things that happen that are out of my control. And I need to be protected. My business needs to be protected. So that's the point of this 3-bill package that we are hopeful we can move through the legislature and that Governor Whitmer will sign.
Are you aware of any such lawsuits being filed at this time?
At this time, no. This is more, looking to the future, looking forward, saying this likely will be a problem, and even if it's not, hopefully it's not, we need to have protections in place there. And this is something we're working on with the business community as a whole, the Michigan Chamber of Commerce, the Business Leaders for Michigan, Small Business Association. So this is something that's being pushed by the business community as a whole.
John McNamara, Vice President of Government Affairs, Michigan Restaurant and Lodging Association. Thank you so much for being with us on the Oakland County MegaCast. We always appreciate you clearing your schedule to come on and talk with us and inform our listeners and viewers. Before we let you go, anything that we didn't touch on that you want to get out there?
I think we covered everything. Just, if you go out to a restaurant, be sure and wear your mask and realize that, those employees are doing everything they can to give you the best experience they can. But it's, times are tough right now.
Times are definitely tough. Support our local restaurants, our local businesses. They are what make our communities so unique.